rusted fishing trawler Delphine had been adrift for 17 days when we finally picked up their distress signal. I was manning the night shift at Pacific Northwest Coast Guard Station, monitoring radio frequencies through another uneventful graveyard shift, when the scratchy transmission cut through the static.
This is FV Delphine. Position unknown. Something in the water. Crew changed. Please.
The voice faded in and out, punctuated by bursts of static. And what sounded like screaming in the background. I scrambled to triangulate the signal while alerting Commander Reeves. Within minutes, we'd narrowed the location to approximately 320 miles off the Oregon coast, far beyond where a vessel that size should be operating. The Delphine had been reported overdue 2 weeks prior, but searchers had found nothing. Now, somehow, they were broadcasting again. Our Jayhawk helicopter departed at dawn, with me aboard as communications specialist. 4 hours of flight time over empty ocean, the endless waves stretching to the horizon, before the pilot spotted a dark shape drifting in the swells. "There she is," he announced. "FV Delphine, dead in the water." From the air, something seemed wrong about the vessel. Its deck was strangely discolored, covered with what looked like dark patches of seaweed or algae. No movement was visible, no response to our radio calls or circling presence. When we lowered onto the deck, the stench hit us immediately. Rotting fish and something else, something chemical and sharp that burned the nostrils. The dark patches weren't seaweed, but some kind of viscous black substance that clung to our boots, stretching into thin strands when we tried to step away. "Careful," Reeves warned. "Don't touch anything without gloves." The wheelhouse door hung askew, its window shattered. Inside, the radio equipment appeared functional, though covered in the same black residue. A logbook lay open on the console, its final entry dated 3 days after the Delphine had gone missing. "The fog won't lift. 3rd day now. Can't get engines running. Black substance coming through hull seams, spreading across deck. Michaels and Rodriguez went to check the hold this morning. Only Rodriguez returned. Said Michaels touched the water in the bilge. Said it touched him back." The lower decks were worse. The black substance covered every surface, thicker here, pulsing slightly as if responding to our flashlight beams. The crew quarters were empty, 6 bunks undisturbed except for the invasive slick covering the blankets and pillows. In the galley, we found Rodriguez. He sat at the small table, leaning against the wall, his body entirely coated in the black substance. It had hardened around him like a cocoon, but his chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. His eyes were open, darting frantically when our lights hit his face, the only part of him not completely encased. "Get a medic! He's alive!" Reeves shouted. As the medic moved forward, Rodriguez's mouth opened. What emerged wasn't a scream, but a gurgling sound, followed by more of the black substance spilling over his lips. His body convulsed once violently, and the hardened shell around him cracked. Something began to push through the fissures, pale, finger-like appendages that weren't human, each tipped with a translucent barb. "Out! Everyone out now!" Reeves ordered. We retreated to the deck as the thing that had been Rodriguez began to emerge from its cocoon. Through the galley doorway, I glimpsed a writhing mass of tendrils and what might have been faces, human faces, embedded in its undulating surface. The helicopter extraction was chaotic. The black substance suddenly became animate, flowing across the deck toward us as we scrambled aboard. One crewman, Lewis, slipped and fell, his hand plunging into the advancing slick. By the time we pulled him up, His fingers had already begun to darken, the skin turning glassy and rigid. We had to amputate his hand during the flight back. The official report classified the Delphine incident as a case of toxic cargo exposure causing mass hallucinations among the rescue team. The trawler was sunk with depth charges the following day, its location marked as a navigational hazard. Lewis disappeared from the hospital 3 days later. The attending nurse reported his amputation site had begun secreting a black oil-like substance before he vanished. I've been on medical leave for 6 months now. The nightmares are persistent. Dreams of black water rising with purpose, of human bodies serving as cocoons for something ancient that hibernates in the deepest ocean trenches. Most disturbing are the patches of hardened glassy skin appearing on my left arm, right where droplets of the substance splashed during our extraction. The doctors call it a rare skin condition. They don't see how it moves slightly when I sleep. Yesterday, I received a text message from an unknown number. It contained only coordinates, a location in the Pacific, not far from where we found the Delphine, and 5 words, "We are waiting for you." Sometimes, when I stand in the shower, I swear I can hear Rodriguez's voice in the running water, telling me about the beautiful darkness waiting beneath the waves, how it only wants to share its ancient knowledge with mankind. Tonight, I'm driving to Newport. I've purchased a small boat. The coordinates aren't too far offshore. After all, when the ocean calls, those who have been touched must answer. The storm had blown us more than 200 miles off course. Our 40-foot sailboat Wanderlust battered but miraculously intact. My wife Elena and I had been attempting to circumnavigate the globe, a retirement dream turned nightmare when we hit unexpected weather in the South Pacific. Dawn broke over unnaturally calm waters. The storm had vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving us drifting in dense pearl grey fog. Our navigation equipment was fried, compass spinning uselessly, and our emergency radio picked up nothing but static interspersed with faint snatches of music, something that sounded like an old-fashioned waltz played on out-of-tune instruments. "Look," Eleanor pointed toward a dark shape materializing through the fog. "Another vessel." As the mist thinned, I felt my breath catch. It wasn't just one ship, but dozens. A floating armada of vessels from different eras. Wooden sailing ships with tattered canvas, alongside rusted steamers and modern yachts, all arranged in a vast circle on the strangely flat sea. Connecting these ships were makeshift bridges and platforms, creating a bizarre floating city. Small boats detached from the formation, rowing toward us. The occupants appeared human at a distance, dressed in an assortment of clothing from different periods. Victorian dresses alongside 1980s windbreakers and ancient maritime garb. "Hello there," called a man from the lead boat. "Welcome to the market. Storm caught, are you?" Something about his too wide smile and the flat pronunciation made me hesitate, but Eleanor waved enthusiastically. "We're lost. Our navigation is down," she called back. "Where exactly are we?" The man laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Why nowhere, my dear? Specifically nowhere. May we come aboard to discuss salvage rights?" Before I could object, they were climbing onto our deck, 3 men and 2 women, all pale with the same strange, fluid movements. Up close, their appearances were more disturbing. Their clothing, though recognizable as human fashion, hung wrongly on frames that seemed to have too many joints. Their eyes reflected the dim light like polished stones. "Salvage is customary," the leader explained, running 2 long fingers along our gunnel. "You've entered market waters. Your vessel now belongs to the collective, but we offer fair compensation." "We're not selling our boat," I said firmly. "We just need directions and perhaps repairs." The visitors exchanged glances. "Perhaps you misunderstand," the leader continued. "The market exists outside normal trading routes, outside normal everything. Those who find us do not leave, but they are compensated." Eleanor squeezed my hand in fear as the visitors began opening cabinets and hatches, inspecting our possessions with clinical interest. "The market opens tonight," one of the women said, her accent impossible to place. "You'll want to attend. Those who resist collection are devalued." They departed as abruptly as they'd arrived, rowing back toward the floating collective. We immediately attempted to start our engines, but they remained dead despite having survived the storm. The wind had died completely, leaving us drifting inexorably toward the circle of ships. By evening, we'd been absorbed into the perimeter of the bizarre flotilla. Bridges of scavenged wood and metal extended from neighboring vessels, attaching to our hull without our permission. Through the fog, lights began to appear. Thousands of mismatched lanterns and electric bulbs strung between ships, illuminating what was indeed a vast floating market. Figures moved along the walkways, some clearly human, others only approximating humanity in their general shape. Booths and stalls appeared, selling impossible merchandise. Bottled emotions with handwritten labels, preserved memories floating in jars of clear liquid, body parts that still moved independently. "We have to get out of here," I whispered to Elena as we huddled in our cabin. "This isn't natural." A tap at our window made us jump. A young woman's face pressed against the glass, normal except for her entirely black eyes. "You're invited to the auction," she said, her voice perfectly audible through the closed window. "Your presence is mandatory. The harbour master wants to meet the newcomers." The auction hall was the converted hold of an ancient whaling ship. Hundreds of market denizens crowded the space, leaving us no choice but to attend. On stage stood various items for bidding, most disturbingly, people who stood blank-faced and compliant as their attributes were called out by the auctioneer. Memories of childhood, excellent vintage, artistic talent, barely used, complete knowledge of quantum physics, slightly damaged. With horror, I realized these weren't people being sold, but aspects of themselves, experiences, skills, emotions, memories. The harbour master found us as we tried to leave. He appeared mostly human, except for the gills pulsing gently at his neck and webbed hands. "The market requires balance," he explained pleasantly. "You've entered our domain, so something must be traded. We take a percentage naturally." "We don't understand," Elena said shakily. His smile widened, revealing triangular teeth. "Simple enough. You can trade aspects of yourselves to outfit your vessel for departure. Memories, skills, and emotional attachments all have value, or remain here forever as inventory. Many find happiness in the market, eventually." That night, we made our decision. Our navigation equipment mysteriously repaired itself after Elena sold 20 years of sailing memories. Our radio functioned once I traded my ability to dream. The fog lifted just enough to reveal a passage out when we jointly offered our memories of our first grandchild. We escaped at dawn, motors running silently, following the narrow, clear channel through the fog. According to our instruments, we lost only 1 day, though it felt like weeks. Our course showed no deviation, no sign we'd encountered anything unusual. Some nights I wake gasping, certain I've heard distant waltz music on the wind. Eleanor sometimes stares at our family photos, lingering over our granddaughter's face with puzzled recognition. The doctors say there's nothing physically wrong with either of us, no explanation for the blank spots in our memories or the strange new habits we've developed, like hoarding small shiny objects and avoiding mirrors at night. But the strangest thing? Our logbook, which I've never shown anyone. The last few pages are filled with listings in handwriting that's almost, but not quite mine. Memory of first kiss, traded for 20 gallons of diesel fuel. Knowledge of Western literature, traded for functional GPS. Capacity for fear, traded for safe passage. Love of music, traded for. I can't remember what we got for that last one. But sometimes, when I look at Elena, I feel something important is missing. Something more precious than fear or dreams or memories. And sometimes, in the small hours of the morning, I could swear I hear the market calling us back, promising to sell us our original selves for the right price.
Mayday, Mayday. This is Research Station Nerid. Coordinates 47 degrees north, 140 degrees west. We are experiencing. God, they're coming through the walls. Mayday.
The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving only the hollow hiss of static. Commander Abrams glanced around the briefing room at the five of us. An elite Coast Guard rescue team assembled for high-risk operations. That distress call came in 6 hours ago, he explained. Research Station Nerid is a deep ocean monitoring platform operated by Global Marine Sciences. It's anchored to a seamount in international waters, monitoring seismic activity along the Pacific Shelf. He pulled up satellite imagery showing a small structure barely visible above the waves, essentially a high-tech buoy housing living quarters and research facilities for a 12-person crew. What's strange, Abrams continued, is that Nerid isn't reporting any structural damage. Remote diagnostics show all systems functioning normally, but no one is responding to communications, and their emergency beacons are active. Lieutenant Carver, our team leader, frowned. Weather conditions? Perfect. Calm seas, clear skies, which makes this all the more concerning. Abrams hesitated. There's one more thing. Before the Mayday, Nerid had been transmitting unusual findings. They detected what they called bioacoustic anomalies, sounds that resembled singing, but at frequencies and patterns unlike any known marine species. We deployed within the hour, our helicopter skimming over endless ocean toward the last known coordinates of Nerid. As we approached, I spotted the research platform, a sleek, circular structure rising about 15 feet above the waterline, topped with solar panels and satellite equipment. Coast Guard rescue to Nerid Station, Carver announced over the radio. We're approaching your position. Please respond. Nothing but static. We winched down to the platform's landing pad one by one. The structure appeared intact. No visible damage, no signs of a struggle. But an unsettling quiet hung over the station, broken only by the gentle lapping of waves against the supports below. The main hatch was secured from inside. Carver overrode the lock with emergency protocols, and we entered with weapons drawn, though what we expected to find, none of us could say. The interior was immaculate. Workstations powered up, coffee still warm in mugs, chairs pushed back as if the occupants had just stepped away momentarily. Personal items remained in place, Family photos, trinkets, and novels splayed open on a couch. Search in pairs, Carver ordered. Find the crew. Rodriguez and I took the lower level, descending to the research labs. The main laboratory was dominated by sophisticated acoustic equipment, hydrophones, spectral analyzers, and recording devices. A large central monitor displayed sound wave patterns unlike anything I'd ever seen. Complex, almost mathematical in precision, yet organic in their flowing variations. "Look at this," Rodriguez called, pointing to a notebook. The chief scientist's log. The final entry, dated the previous day, read, "Breakthrough in translation algorithm. The patterns aren't random. They're language. They've been singing to us, waiting for us to answer. We're broadcasting the response sequence tonight. They're coming to meet us." A blinking light drew my attention to a control panel. One system was still actively broadcasting, sending a looped audio sequence into the deep ocean below. "We need to shut this down," I said, reaching for the controls. Rodriguez grabbed my wrist. "Wait." His eyes had a strange, unfocused quality. "Do you hear that?" At first, I heard nothing. Then, faintly, a sound like distant singing, haunting, beautiful notes that seemed to resonate not through my ears, but directly in my bones. The melody grew stronger, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Rodriguez, snap out of it," I shouted, shaking him. But his eyes remained fixed on the water, visible through the lab's observation port. Something was moving out there, shadowy forms rising from the depths, circling the station's supports. Not sharks or whales, but something else. Elongated, sinuous shapes that reflected light in iridescent patterns. As they drew closer, I glimpsed features that were almost human, but horribly wrong. Too fluid, too symmetrical, with eyes like polished obsidian. "They answered," Rodriguez whispered. "They're so beautiful. We have to go to them." Before I could stop him, he was moving toward the emergency exit hatch, the one designed for underwater evacuations. The singing grew louder, drowning out my shouts as I lunged for him. The station's alarm suddenly blared, the integrity warning. Water was entering somewhere.
"Breach in lower levels."
Carver's voice crackled over our radios.
"Everyone topside now."
I dragged the struggling Rodriguez toward the stairs, fighting against both his resistance and my own inexplicable urge to turn back, to view the creatures more clearly. The singing had become almost unbearable in its beauty, promising answers, connection, transcendence. We barely made it to the upper level before the lower compartments flooded. The rest of the team had gathered in the control room, all looking dazed, fighting the same influence I felt pulling at my mind. "The station's support anchors are being severed," Carver reported, his voice strained. "Something's cutting through them systematically. We have minutes before this whole platform sinks." Through the control room windows I saw them. Dozens now, their bodies glimmering beneath the surface as they worked to dismantle the station's foundations. One rose partially above the waves, revealing a torso, almost human, but covered in scales that shifted color like oil on water. Its face held a terrible intelligence, eyes fixed directly on mine as it sang. We escaped by helicopter as Nereid began to tilt, its structural supports giving way. From the air, we watched the platform slowly slide beneath the waves, surrounded by the singing beings who had called it down. Just before it vanished completely, I saw the station's crew, all 12 researchers emerging onto the sinking deck, walking calmly into the waiting arms of the ocean dwellers who had summoned them. The official report cites a structural failure due to unexpected deep ocean currents. The researchers are listed as missing, presumed drowned. Equipment malfunction is blamed for the unusual audio transmissions recovered from NIRID's databanks, but I know better. I still hear the singing sometimes, especially near water. Rodriguez was institutionalized after attempting to drown himself in a public fountain, still muttering about joining the choir. 2 weeks ago, deep-sea fishing vessels began reporting a new phenomenon: beautiful singing heard through their hulls at night, always accompanied by equipment failures and crew members attempting to dive overboard. Last night, I received an email from an untraceable address. It contained only an audio file and the words, "We miss you." I haven't played the file, but sometimes I find my finger hovering over it, especially late at night when the silence feels too empty. After all, what harm could there be in just listening, just once, to the most beautiful song in the world?